Welcome to this episode of Why Pals Tales from Superyacht Laundry. I am very excited, probably overexcited about this podcast episode because I've got a podcaster. So it's really nice to have somebody who works in the same field. I've got the glamorous boat princess, Nicky Vaux. Is that right? I mean, I'm saying it right.
You've got that right.
Absolutely paranoia about it. She's a Marina owner, entrepreneur, Venus Getaways. Take me, please. And then obviously the Boat Princess podcast. Is there anything you can't do? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Cherise. It's so nice to be here. I'm excited about it too.
Well, obviously we have only just seen each other. I managed to collar you when you're on this side of the planet. You reached out to go on your podcast while we were at the Glamorous Mets just recently. Yes. And I told you, spilled the beans on me and what I'm up to. So I only think it's fair that we do the same to yourself. So cool. Who is Nicky and where does she come from?
Well, where do we start? Where do you want me to start?
Well, you're in Oz. And then where did boats come in your life? Let's start there. You're born and bred Australian?
No.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah. Born in England.
No way.
Yeah. Oh. My boating lifestyle started on Poole Harbour.
Oh, no way.
I used to go to school holidays, and my father worked for John Lewis Partnership. So our holidays were at Brownsea Castle on Brownsea Island. And we used to go to Sailing Regatta Week every year. And I used to crew for my dad in a GP14.
So you're a proper sailor. I can't.
I do this now. But, I
can't say that I'm a sailor. I worked on motorboats, so it's a floating hotel basically that I have no control over. But you actually were on the water from a young age. Yeah,
and there was a lovely little motorboat that used to take us back and forth to the island called Castello, and she still exists. She's a 1964 timber boat, and funnily enough, I now own a 1964 timber boat. And when I bought her and we went on our trial run, she's actually a yacht, but she's got a nice little diesel engine in her. And as soon as she started up, I went, sounds like Castello, smells like Castello. I've got to have this boat. Yeah, so that was my first love, that beautiful little boat, and she's still going.
Was it when you were a kid out on the water? Was it like just Dad made you, or was there a passion to get out there?
I guess Mum made me really, because she refused to do any more crewing. So. Which is a story in itself, which I usually start a conference with because it's very amusing. She didn't want to do the crewing anymore, so I stepped in and did it from there. So, it was. But the wonderful thing about sailing with your family is that it's true dedicated time that you'll never forget with your parents. So that time with my dad was time that was very special for me, and created another part of our relationship, if you like.
I suppose in this day and age when everybody's talking about distractions and stuff, like if you're on the boat, like nobody's on their phone, you're hands on and you're all trying to get on to get a job done. So it must have been a really kind of lovely experience that's quite rare now.
Well, that's the beauty of boating, isn't it? And that's why I promote it so much, especially for families in the world that we live in now, because it is that you are entirely focused on what you're doing. You're getting splashed. If you're the crew, you're the one being splashed by the waves, and you're working together as a team, and you're entirely focused on what you're doing, especially when you're racing, because you're just entirely focused. So I think it's I was talking to Peter Meffin the other day, and I was saying, you are focused when you're racing, and it's almost meditational. And he said, no, I'm not sure it's meditational. It's fairly intense sailing racing, but yeah, it's you are focused and you're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about, and as a family, you're spending time together tremendously, and those memories never go. You will always remember them.
I do think it's stuff like that is meditational, because people get a misconception about meditation. Meditation, you're trying to force your brain to kind of become inactive. But you're basically trying to focus internally, and anything you have to give your 100% focus means you've got no chatter. It's like rock climbing. If you think about other things whilst rock climbing, you will fall off. If you're sailing,
exactly right.
Do you know what I mean? You will either, sails will stop, or, I don't know, lose wind, or I don't know. Obviously, I don't know, because I've just said that. But anyway, yeah. And to have that experience, because obviously when we talk about working on boats, a lot of the time we talk about boat families. You become a chief stew, you become a boat mum. So to have that with your family, that must be really quite a lovely thing to have.
It is, and I've had it with my kids since, and it's a privilege that you get to go boating together. But again, they have memories they'll never forget from boating. So
that's really good.
And it's even as they've grown and they're young adults, the time you spend on a boat together is somehow completely different to time on land. It's almost like time slows down, and you're often in a place that you can't even get signal. So you can't use your device. So you're forced to, I don't know, have a conversation.
Oh, dear. Well, yes, I'm sure the conversation, if you're forced to, gets better over time. So you grew up in the UK, but so when did you get the Aussie accent?
Well, I've been in Australia for 33 years now, so long time. So my mum and dad gave me a flight to Australia for my 21st birthday.
Oh, wow.
So I went over on a working holiday and I met my amazing husband, and the rest is history.
What, literally at 21? Was that like, what was he, why was he in a hostel?
No, he was a friend of the family I was staying with, so I got introduced to him through that. Yeah.
And it was love at first sight?
No, I completely ignored him. So that made me a challenge. So
right.
Happy days. Here I am.
Have you stopped being a challenge?
I don't know. Probably not.
So where? So obviously you went over to Australia. Where did you head into?
Sydney. And I was lucky enough to start my Sydney life in Northern Beaches. Nice. Which, for those of you that know, Sydney is a beautiful, are there any ugly parts of Sydney? Not really. The Northern Beaches in itself is a beautiful, it's just full of gorgeous beaches. And it's a fabulous area to start my life in Sydney. So I was very blessed to get that. It
is absolutely stunning. The only thing I couldn't get on with was the helicopter chase, when it follows the sharks, I'm just chilling, sunbathing. Right, what is that helicopter doing? And then obviously you realise, you're like, I'm not going to swim today. I'm just, just maybe paddle a little bit.
But Europeans are obsessed with that. That we, I don't know if it's some sort of marketing ploy we do to keep people out, maybe, I don't know. The whole spiders, snakes and sharks thing. Europeans as soon as they meet an Australian, that's all they talk about. It's fascinating.
It is, because, there's nothing can kill you here. You're more like, you're going to get killed by another person in the UK, not a creature. And, I'm not particularly afraid of spiders, but the biggest spider I've ever seen, although they're not the ones to be afraid of, was, it was in Australia. It was big, and then the snakes, and it was, to be honest, the only thing I didn't like was the possum noise. Like, what is that? It's like from hell. Like, the noise that they create is interesting. If you wanted to, what does a demon sound like? It's going to make horrendous noise in the middle of the night just to freak you out, or scuttle across a tin roof. Like, They don't actually bother you, but they just sound fun, you know.
They do. And also when I come to England, you have beautiful tweet birds, tweety birds. And in Australia, we have pterodactyl type things.
Yeah. So it's like going back in prehistoric times. It's funky ass noises, and, you know, don't worry about the big spiders because they're obviously scary, but the little ones, you know, they can kill you. So it's just a lot for our little European brains to cope with. There's just too many dangers. Be careful where you swim, you know, because you get riptide, you know, lots.
Oh, yeah.
Lots.
Yeah.
You're going to get skin cancer, loads, just a lot of information. You know, we don't have to worry about stuff like this because, you know, the sun never comes out in this country. So, yes. So you're in Australia. You've met the love of your life. What career did you have while you were over there?
I was in hospitality. I was in top-end hotels. I did a degree in hospitality. So I trained at the Ritz and Grosvenor House in London. Nice. And then I trained at the Ritz. I started my career at Grosvenor House. And then I worked at Hilton when I first came to Sydney. So I worked in hotels, and ever since I've always said there's not a huge difference between hotels and marinas. Really, it's the same hospitality, same service, same approach to clients, even occupancy. Our business is based on occupancy, just like a hotel. So when did marinas appear in your CV? Let me think. About 20 years ago, we acquired Gladesville Bridge Marina in Sydney. So that was our first foray into the world of marinas. So I've got it written down.
What a boat people like to manage. Because I'm just I don't know, they're super chilled about some things, you know, somebody's parked their boat and then just disappeared off the face of the planet. You know, we've got a marina in Chichester. Some of those vessels don't look like they could go to sea. I don't know. They're just kind of like floating sheds, I would say. So what are boat people like? Because what kind of sizes are you talking about? Like just fun, pleasure to start with?
We vary in our we're floating marinas. We don't have we have dry stack in Lake Macquarie actually. So we vary from sort of 20 feet up to 100 feet in size. So we've got 200 berths at our marina at Bobbin Head, Empire Marina Bobbin Head, and 250 berths at Empire Marina Lake Macquarie. Now, when I say lake, it's 5 times the Sydney Harbour. So it's a massive, massive lake. So both amazing boating locations. And in terms of boat people, interestingly, I'm sure you experience the same in Europe, but the people vary dramatically in the areas of the marinas as well as the boat ownership type. So there is no sort of just like a hotel. Anybody can walk into a hotel.
Yep.
And they can be from anywhere in the world and do anything in the world and have an expectation that can be completely different to the person that walked in before them. So a yachtie will have a far different perspective and requirement to a motor yacht owner. A super yacht owner is completely different again. So, and a mega yacht owner, even more so. So, but then also the people that have their boats on Lake Macquarie are completely different to the people that have their boats at Bobbin Head. The people that have their boats permanently at Bobbin Head as opposed to the ones that pop in for 3 months because normally they're up in Queensland. Again, they're different again. So we have to continuously adapt and cater to all of those different needs. And the way you do that is basically getting to know them. As a community, we know the people in our marina. I don't personally know them as well as our amazing marina managers know them, and our CEO. They know them better than me. And they look after them really, really well. And we literally do, barbecues to catch up with them and events at the marina, because it's not just a place to park your boat. It should be, if it's a good marina, a community of people that know each other. It's different in Europe because your marinas are much more transitional. Our marinas, I've got clients in the Bobbin Head Marina, I've been there for 20 years. So,
well, your country's a little bit bigger, you know, like it's
true.
You have to, you know, it's a long ass flight just to get over to the other side of your island, let's say.
It is.
It's a big old place. So I can imagine, you know, it's not that easy, or it's not, you know, you might be a long drive to tow a boat. And then obviously if it gets big, you know, you're not going to tow it, you're going to have to sail it. And then also your seas are a bit more fruity.
Pretty brutal.
You know.
Yeah, they're pretty brutal, our seas. Yeah.
I was violently sick on a super yacht coming out of Sydney. It was my first taste.
Yeah.
Like it was just like a little jolly to go out and go up to one of the beaches, do lunch, come back. No, like swelly, just very swelly. And I wasn't prepared and I hadn't taken any seasickness. So, yeah, it's a bit interesting, your coastline, I would say.
It is. And that's why, you know, you've got to have a decent hull in our coastline. But you also pick it, like any boating, pick your day. If you pick a good day,
weather,
you can go from Sydney Harbour to our marina at Bobbin Head in like 2.5 hours, doing an average of sort of 18 knots. And it's a fantastic run. So
it's a beautiful view.
It's just down to the day.
It's like, you know, that's stuff you would put, you know, take a photo, put a painting on your wall. Like, it's absolutely stunning all the way around there.
Thank you.
So obviously it sounds like you had a really hard life in these lovely locations.
Yeah, it's been tough.
How's the marina industry, you know, it seems like it's quite a stable industry in Australia, would you say? Or has it been peaks and troughs? Obviously we've had financial crises and things like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, and also you're a woman in the industry. Is there any difference with women in the marina industry? Do you get treated differently?
Yes and no. And sometimes there's good parts to it and sometimes there's tougher parts to it. So as an example, I can go to my mechanic at my marina, who's one of my tenants, and I can ask him a question. He will absolutely explain everything that I need to know in that question very, very happily. And as a woman, I'm very happy to do that. I'm happy to ask that question. It's harder for men to say, I don't know this. Can you help me with it? It's harder for them to do that. So that's an advantage, I think, that women have in the industry, because the industry is quite tough on you if you don't know your stuff. So they will call you out on it, and they will almost embarrass you sometimes if you don't know know your knowledge. So you do have to, I guess, immerse yourself and learn a lot. And I sold boats for 7 or 8 years. And
that would help.
That was a massive learning curve for me. But I just persisted and I just kept learning and learning and learning. And if somebody did ask me a question I didn't know the answer to, I said, don't know the answer to that, but I'm going to get the answer for you. Then I would phone or contact the expert in that space. They would explain it to me. And then I'd say, okay, it's because of this, 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 and this. Because I was very conscious of, as a woman, you can't, what's a polite way of saying it? BS. You know, you've got to gain the respect. You've got to know your stuff.
I mean, that's the female experience, isn't it? To get anywhere where females aren't, you know, predominant. If you're pioneering in those areas, you've got to just know your stuff. Otherwise, they're just going to be on you all of the time. And, you know, there's only so many times you can be made fun of. And, you know, it takes an incredible amount of thick skin, you know, the amount of side comments and stuff like that, whilst you are learning, whilst you are trying your hardest. But once you know you know, there is an incredible amount of satisfaction and confidence though when you are at, you know, the peak of it kind of thing, that you've done,
Absolutely.
you've served
not
your
only
time.
That, there's loads of people in the industry that are willing to help you get there. You know, they're very, that the beauty of the boating industry is they do like sharing that knowledge, and they're passionate about what they do, so they share it with you. And that, I think, is a wonderful thing about our industry, and something that we I certainly appreciate a great deal.
Would you, sort of, like, from your perspective, so obviously you know, based in Australia, you've come over, you told me you've been to every Met since the start of Met. Is that right?
Oh God, no, not me. No, Darren has. Darren's been there, I think, 15 times, because he's my husband. He's the current president of ICOMIA, which is the International Council of Marine Industry Associations, and they're the body that work in conjunction with METS to produce that show. So he's been to many, but I was at home with the children when the early ones were doing, and even into their teenage years. Of course, we have, you know, when you're that far away, you can't disappear for 3 weeks.
No.
Even when they're 15, 16, you've got to be around for them for support and emergency and just
I don't know whether you feel like,
process.
as a mother, like they've got to be a certain level of sufficiency before you're like, right, I'm going to go to the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
Look after yourself.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So you've been to a few, no?
I've been to 3. Yeah.
3.
Met's trades.
What's the difference between Australia and Europe? What do you...
Oh, gosh, that's a big question.
We've got time, just, you know... What were your first impressions of Europe in the beginning then? Let's start.
Oh, well, I mean, everyone loves Europe, right? Don't they? Yeah. I mean, Europe is a beautiful part of the world, and you've got, I think the fundamental difference between Europe and Australia is if you live in England, you can pop across to France for lunch, and you can pop down to Spain for a weekend, and you can pop down to Italy for 3 nights. And we are so far from everything that every travel for us is a big ask. Even going from our city to city is an hour flight or a 9-hour journey, Sydney to Brisbane, that sort of stuff. So I think that's the fundamental difference. So I think you get a lot more exposure to different cultures, different languages, different money even. And we are fairly similar over the whole of Australia. There'll be plenty of Australians that will argue that entirely. They will not be happy about that statement. But,
no, you are different. You know, you're completely different, 100%. Yep. No.
But we do know we can get a really good coffee in Sydney, and we can get a really good coffee in Melbourne.
Yep. I mean, you can get, like, you guys' obsession with, like, if anybody's ever been to Australia, the best coffee, you know, normally you're like, you know, Italy, like cappuccino, you know, like where these things are supposed to go. Australia is just obsessed. Like your food and your coffee. Like I picked up a coffee, I think I've told the story before, and the barista just put a dragon in the top of it. I'm like, what are you doing? Like it's like a work of art. Like I can't draw that on a piece of paper, let alone with a bit of foam in the top of my coffee. Do you know what I mean? Obsessed. But you are, obviously, for the people that think you're different, obviously a coffee in Perth is different to Sydney. 100% not.
No, not the coffee. The coffee is consistently good across the whole country.
Amazing.
And it's served by passionate baristas and passionate cafe owners, and it's when we travel, we find that really hard now, that finding a good coffee like we're used to at home is it's getting better. I have to say it's getting better.
But the food, it's tricky. And the food, it's so good to get good food in Australia, like so spoiled. I mean, I thought I was a great traveller when I landed in Sydney and I woke up eventually. I'm like, I'm going to go down to Bondi Beach. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to have a nice coffee. And then I picked granola. I'd never had granola in my life. And they just gave me this tiny little dob of yogurt. And I'm like, I'm crunching it. I'm like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Like losing a filling. But everything's so good. Like so good. The fish. Oh my gosh. The fish. But yeah, you are spoiled. Again, it's a horrible place to live.
We've
obviously.
got amazing ingredients.
Yes.
We've got amazing chefs and talent in this country. And we've also got a beautiful fusion of different people from all over the world. So our food, when I've been away from Australia for an extended period of time, I really, especially if I'm in UK, Europe, I really miss the influence of Asia on the food. So we have sushi instead of a sandwich, and we just love.
I'm so hungry now. Like
fusion mix of Asian food. Yeah,
the Asian food in Australia is just out of this world. It really is. Australian MasterChef, I would probably say, is a bit better as well. Like I've watched that week. I really like Australian MasterChef. It's lovely. So like being in the boating side of, Europe, would you say, because obviously, you've got that simplicity in a way that you're just dealing with one country, dealing with different countries has complications because everybody's got their own way of doing things. Do you have, what's your favourite and what's your least favourite country to work in?
I don't really kind of work in the countries. I go for conferences and I speak at conferences and I attend congresses with my husband. I go to expos, all that kind of thing. I don't think I would have a least favourite because every time you go to another Portugal we went to last year. It was amazing. It was fantastic. It was brilliant. And you do learn because we do marina tours and things like that every time we do these events. So you do learn that in some ways they do things a little bit differently, and there might be little things that they do slightly differently. But in reality, because we're all marinas, we do it all the same, really, because we're dealing with boats, power, clients, water. It's all the same sort of things. So it's kind of cool like that because you're going to a completely different culture and a completely different country, but in reality you're still seeing the same boat brands, you're still seeing the same setups in marinas. A perfect example is in Australia we have on our marinas we have a finger every two boats. In Europe, you'll be lucky if you get enough space for the boat, let alone a full berth with a finger on the side. So I think we do sort of return to Australia. If somebody says, "Oh, I've only got 2 meters between my boat and the boat next door," we go, "Try going to Europe."
Yeah, it's squishy. So, it's squishy. Yeah. What's your favourite?
My favourite place.
Favourite marina in Europe? Go on, you've got to have one favourite if you're being too political about your least. Well, it's got to be, I love Venice. I adore Venice because you have, everywhere you go in Venice, you have to go on a boat. So to me, that's like heaven. I can't go anywhere without going on a boat. Whee! So I adore Venice with a passion. And Alberto, our friend who owns a marina there, he's a wonderful man. The World Marinas Conference is actually being held there next year in October. So I cannot wait for that because I know he is going to put on an incredible showcase. The beauty of our congresses is that we go to a city and the marina manager of the biggest marina usually there organises the Congress. So they put on amazing showcases of what their city can do. So in Athens, we had this incredible dinner in a dome-centred room with opera being sung and the view was up to the music. It was just, to die for stuff. And that is the beauty of
the boating industry is they never put boats in ugly places, right? So everywhere we go is beautiful. Yep. So yeah, the ICOMIA World Marinas Conference next October in Venice, I can't wait for, because I love that place.
So you'll be back over next year, obviously.
Yeah, I'll be back over twice next year. I've got Dubai in March, then I've got Congress in Palma de Mallorca in May.
All right.
And then we've got the World Marinas Conference in October in Venice. So amazing times. So you're and I would really love to get to the European, because I've never actually done the European boat show circuit.
All right.
So I'm really hoping to do Cannes and Southampton and Genoa and, you know, all the European circuit next year.
Oh, wow. Well, when you go to Southampton, give me a buzz. Yeah,
I will.
Stay at our house. We're not far.
Thank you. That's so nice.
So obviously the world of marinas, you know, like you said, you don't go, the marinas aren't anywhere ugly, you know. That's the shipyards. They go to the ugly places. So obviously you've been doing it. You obviously interviewed me for your podcast, and obviously we are all about women on Tales from the Superyacht Laundry. Why did you start a podcast?
Oh, well, I saw a gap in the market because 15 years ago when I went to a Marinas conference, there would be a group of 10 women and like 400 guys. And I didn't think it was because of the guys. And it's not because of the guys. I think it's purely a lack of awareness to schools and to females generally that the boating industry exists as something they can do. So I thought, okay, how can I, because I know so many people in this industry. I'm lucky enough to have friends all over the world in this industry. I thought, how can I show the world, if you like, that there are so many different roles within the boating industry that they could do, right from magazine editors to shipwrights to painters to marina managers to stews to there's so many different roles. And so I thought, if I interview people on a podcast and they tell me what they do in the industry, hopefully somebody will listen to that podcast and say, oh, that sounds like a fun thing to do, or that sounds like a skill set I have, or that sounds like something different to what I'm doing now that I'm not really enjoying, that I'd like to do. And I wanted to make them feel welcome and want them to come into our industry, because I personally think it's an amazing industry. I love it. And so I literally started interviewing. I do tend to focus on women in the industry because obviously that's showing other women that women already exist in the industry.
Well, I suppose with the name Boat Princess, guys are not like, you know.
No, I get loads of guys listening to podcasts. Yeah, loads.
No, you know what I mean? They're not naturally like, oh, I'm going to listen to boat. Do you know what I mean? Unless they kind of know you, they perhaps might not take a chance.
No, some of my biggest fans are men. And they'll literally send me a message. What happened to this week's podcast? What's going on? You know. So I really am blessed to have a huge following and a real mixed following of people, because I do interview guys too, but also because the guys want to support the women too. They're not. I don't think there's sure there's there's moments, but there are men in my business and men in my world that have got me to where I am in this business.
Yep.
So, I think that's something I really try and push. I'm not, I do get upset when women get angry and try and blame the men. Honestly, sometimes it's the women that try and knock down the women.
It's not it's a difficult, when you've got, it's so intense to try and get into an industry because it's not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted, I don't think, the yachting industry. As a woman, you've literally got to have that determination, because if you're not committed, it can get really tricky, and you'll be like, not bothered. But there are, like you said, a lot of guys really, they really want to help. They're not fazed at all by your existence in the industry. So what, in your podcast, what have you discovered when interviewing?
Well, first of all, I've discovered how much I love doing it. Oh my God.
It's so easy.
It is so good. I so enjoy doing it. And I've become a better listener because of it as well, which I love. But I have discovered so many people fall into the industry. So they didn't intentionally go into the industry. And incidentally, I think that's something we still lack. We don't have an easy pathway of this is how you get into this role in the boating industry. And I think that's something we're all working on to improve. But so many people have fallen into it and then loved it and then stayed in it all their lives. Also, the majority of people in it have at some point of their childhood and their upbringing been involved in boats. And that's something we actually need to, I guess, make people who haven't done that feel comfortable about coming into our industry, because a lot of them don't. A lot of them think weird words. It's very complex. We even say funny names that aren't spelt like they should be, like gunnel and, all those sorts of things. So that can be a bit daunting for them. So I think we need to, but the podcast has been so much fun. I've had so many brilliant conversations with incredible people working in our industry, but also incredible people who have, Lisa Blair, that sailed around Antarctica. Wow. Of course, the beautiful Kay Cotty, who's a dear friend, who was the first woman to sail around the world unassisted without stopping. And her admission that when she came into Sydney Harbour, she just wanted to turn around and go back out again because of all these people, So, wow. So I've had some brilliant conversations. It's been the best of fun, and I really, really enjoy doing it. And what's really fascinating is when the people you interview then hear from all of their friends from all over the world saying, "I've heard you on this podcast," and they don't really understand how far we get, and we actually get a long, long way. So. And to many, many, many people. So that's a bit of a thrill. Yeah.
It is a bit of a thrill. Do you think it's changed you? Like, since you've started, do you think you've changed as a person and as a podcaster since you've started?
Yes, I think I am. I mean, I was lucky. I kind of I have a good podcast producer, and she trained me at the start, and she was with me for my first sort of 10 episodes to sort of say, no, do this, no, do that. No. So I had a good start of guidance. I think that was really important. And therefore I have become much more independent of her. So I just send her files now, and she then edits and then uploads. So I do all my own tech in terms of equipment now. So I'm much more capable as myself as a podcaster now. I'm much more. I'll be much more. I'll approach people that I wouldn't normally approach to say, would you like to be on the podcast? Because I know it's actually something that they actually value. So, and it's good for their career and their business and so on and so forth. So, that's really nice, because I feel really confident to approach perhaps people that I spoke to, Madame Vranken recently. I interviewed her from Pommery, Champagne, and she was an amazing interview. She's coming out soon. And I probably wouldn't have approached her as a person, because she's a very strong-willed woman. She's an incredible businesswoman. And we always underestimate ourselves as businesswomen, don't we?
Yeah.
So we always think, oh my God, she's amazing. And yet in reality, and I don't want to talk myself up here too much, but we are too. But we don't.
Well, as women, we always put ourselves
that
down. Do you know what I mean? Like women by nature, I think we question ourselves and what we're doing. You know, I've learned that myself. You know, it's if you don't ask, you don't get. And I think you know, sometimes with the way the female brain works, we think about what would happen if we asked rather than just ask and see what happens. Do you know what I mean? We kind of preempt a response. But it does, you know, you do get more relaxed into it, I suppose. You know, I've got quite a curious mind like yourself. So you just ask if something comes across your mind, you just ask rather than being robotic, I suppose, and just, you know, asking. I suppose I probably should take some proper training because I haven't had any. I just ask the questions that I'm interested in, basically. It's all about me.
I've also got very good at nodding.
Nodding.
You notice when I did because I only ever do mine audio.
Yeah.
I only ever do them in person, and that's kind of two of my values that I stick to. And I did a podcast, this was a learning moment for me. I did a podcast on a boat once, which was on a Iliad catamaran with Mark, who is the owner of that company. And he wasn't looking at me when he was doing the interview. So apparently, according to Pip, my podcast producer, I said yes 400 times, and she had to take all those out.
400 times?
So now I make sure I'm absolutely sitting opposite them, and I'm doing this all the time because people want to be acknowledged when they're talking. But if you keep going, yes, yes, that's really annoying to listen to.
I had to learn. So I had to learn to not speak over people. I didn't even realise that I was doing it, if I'm really honest. That's something that's new, that's come into my life. But I didn't realise that I'd kind of cut in sometimes. So I apologise to everybody I've ever done that to in my life, because there's going to be loads for you. My family obviously love coming here for Christmas because I cut them off all the time because I know exactly what they're going to say. Do you, obviously you've obviously been doing the podcast a while, your observations for, you know, the female experience in the yachting industry in all of these years now, what are the good things on the horizon that you're seeing?
Oh, firstly, there's a lot more of us.
Yep.
A lot more of us recently, which is amazing and fantastic. I see that we have a brilliant skill set to bring to, especially marina management, incredibly so. And I think that's based on our problem-solving skills, our organisational skills, our relationships with people skills. If we have those, and also team management skills, of course. Now, the guys have that too, but I think as women and we can work really well as teams with men, because I think as women and men, we bring different items to the table. And I think that's a really important message, that this isn't about just having women in the industry. It's about working with men in the industry, because if we work together, we've got a brilliant set of differences and skills and abilities that we can bring to the table in a different way. So the way in which I might deal with a conflict is completely different to which a man might deal with a conflict, and we might have a better version for the particular client. Some clients would be, you have to do it tough to actually get them to understand. Whereas others, it might be a more gently carrot, to the client instead of.
Would you say that
instead of the stick? Yeah.
Would you say we're the generation that's probably part of the generations where it was in the beginning, you had to be a man in a man's world kind of vibe, I think we're now coming to terms with the fact that it's not beneficial. We're not men, so why would you want to? And also, like you said, we're missing out on using the attributes that we have to kind of turbocharge, especially service, because, there is, the reason why a lot of women, not just the physical, are on the interior. It's just, we're just more, generally a lot more attuned to emotion, which is all about hospitality. But I do think would you say we're kind of making peace a little bit now? We don't need to be men, as long as, we bring something new to the table. So technically we're not as threatening as we were, because we're not trying to take their jobs. We're just trying to, like the never ending story of men and women, complement each other, since the beginning of time. Not, I'm not going to go out and get a spear and go hunt a saber-toothed tiger. Do you know what I mean? Like it's...
Yeah. Although I have to say, sometimes we're still doing that against each other as women.
Yeah.
So we're threatened by other women sometimes, and we have to be careful that we're not affecting their careers because of that threat, and that comes down to some sort of Stone Age, protecting our children and our territory and all that sort of stuff, which is 2024. We've got to get out of that. So, but also I think it's, the younger generation are bringing a different language forward. They're bringing a different approach to things forward, and they're teaching us as an older generation that certain things that we tolerated and thought was the norm aren't okay. But they're also teaching us, that the language is changing, I think, which is a good thing, and which is less threatening.
Yeah.
I do think it's really important that we are strong, but we're not angry. I think that's a really important part of it.
Well, I suppose that's coming to, I've never claimed to be a feminist, but I'm very aware that I'm a female. And, there is loads of great things about being a female. There are loads of really horrible things about being a female. If I weighed it up, being a boy, being a girl, in a lot of ways, I do think they get it a lot easier. Just biologically, they get a lot easier, right? I'm not saying that it's all easy, but like that bit. But I do think we are coming to an age now, and like you said, language is changing. So what would offend me is not the same. Well, what wouldn't offend me is not the same as this generation, But I think we need to also influence them that, don't take it to heart. You need a bit of a tough skin as well. You can't absorb every stupid comment a man comes out with, because you're just going to get, they come out with a lot of stuff. You can't absorb it all and take it to heart. And I think we've got, especially after COVID,
well,
the sensitivity
for example,
issue.
A 75-year-old man might say to a young woman, what beautiful eyes you have, and he's just being nice.
Yeah.
And that sometimes can be taken the wrong way. And that, I think, is what we need to be careful of as humans, that we're not losing a kindness to each other and an appreciation of the opposite sex. We should be able to say the laws now that, my husband can't say to his office manager who's female, well, you look lovely today. He's actually not allowed to say that anymore. And I think that's sad, personally.
I think it's sad, and it's probably too far the other way. Like you said, everything is in balance. It's gone quite far, probably the other way. It needs to kind of come back a little bit, because you've got to be able to communicate. And, sometimes the man is attractive and you might want to flirt with him. And at this rate, nobody's going to flirt with you ever. So, how are they going to meet anybody?
It's actually a real issue of how do partners find partners at the moment, because again, under Australian, you're not allowed to ask somebody out if that request is not wanted.
How are they supposed to know that?
How are they supposed to know it's not wanted?
And most of the guys that have asked me out, they were rubbish at it. Like, literally, it was awful. It was awkward. It was like the poor guys, like, they just won't bother. Like, it's just like, nah, I'll just text her.
Well, they can do that now at least, can't they? But then maybe then it's text evidence, and then they're even more trouble.
They're taking all the fun out of it because the terrible pickup lines, the bad experiences, that's the banter, and that's also what you laugh about. Back in the, you're losing your back in the day comments. Back in the day. Yeah. Well, I was stood in a bar in Manly.
And look, there's some horrible stuff that goes on, and that's inappropriate, and that is the stuff that absolutely needs to be stopped. There's absolutely no doubt of that. And maybe that, I don't know if that grows from that sort of stuff. I don't know. But I come from a different generation that is constantly learning from the younger generation now that, I know I need to, I have my certain opinions about things. I think I'm still entitled to those, but they are opinion, and
you're allowed an opinion. I don't think opinions are illegal. Are they? Maybe not yet.
What's that? Opinions? Well, I don't know,
they're not illegal yet.
No,
well,
maybe in Russia, for them, right?
Honestly, I'll get arrested eventually, like 100%. I'm in a whole world of trouble if opinions get you put away. Like, we've got a guy in the press in the UK at the moment. The poor guy, he's crass, he's inappropriate. He's the guy in the bar back in the day.
Yeah.
He just always used to crack really lame jokes. Lame jokes, always a little bit probably on the kind of naughty side, but it always just came out a bit creepy. But that's what he was, and you just kind of ignore it and like, yeah, right, kind of thing. The guy's all over the press, like they're trying to cancel him in the UK for stuff he said 10 years ago. Like, they're literally dragging stuff out. Now, women, to all the women out there, if something happens and you don't like it and you think it's inappropriate, say at the time. You can't go back 10 years. I mean, the world's changed in 10 years.
Totally. Totally changed.
It's just, tell him he's a dickhead and to piss off. Like, don't understand. Well, maybe I'm just a bit, but any woman that's done bar work, he's that annoying guy at the bar that comes in on a Friday and just, oh God, him again. And he just comes out with lame comments. But any barmaid would just be like, I haven't got time or space in my life to absorb what you're saying, so it's irrelevant. And I think this generation, we need to get them to understand, like, just, if it's bad.
When I was a barmaid, because I was a barmaid when I was at uni, it was banter back, and you just gave them back as much as you received, right? And I guess you do have to have a certain level of confidence to be able to do that, and a certain level of wit, I guess, to respond. But
like I said, I'd probably end up arrested. Yeah. If people go back to the crass stuff.
Me too. I'm
in trouble. I'm in trouble.
Yeah,
I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Right, to finish up, I just would like you to talk about these incredible holidays, retreats that you're running, Venus Getaways. Before we go, and then I'm going to ask you we always ask for a crazy story. So, from your time in the boating world, weird, crazy stuff happens. So I'd like to hear your story. But before we do that and finish up, Venus Getaways, can I, book?
Of course.
If I do a podcast while I'm there, do I get a discount? I don't know. I just want to come. I feel like I need it.
Well, Venus started many, many years ago now. Gosh, so many years ago. And it's changed and evolved over the years, and we've had different properties involved and all that sort of thing. But essentially our flagship property is a house in the Blue Mountains in Sydney, which is an hour and a half drive from Sydney, in the most amazing landscape. The Blue Mountains is staggeringly gorgeous. And it's actually an 1890s property. And what we do is we girls book the property for their group of 4 to 6 to 8.
Yep.
And we have a full-time butler to take care of them. And I mean a proper butler, not a half-naked butler, proper butler. And we have massage therapists come in and do massages for them. There's a hot spa there.
Sounds awful.
And it's based on the premise that you and I, as women, tend to go to holiday houses, which we like the privacy and the space and the comfort of, rather than a hotel room.
Yep.
But we tend to end up doing exactly the same things at a different sink.
Yep. Airbnb is not a holiday.
The premise of this, yeah. So the premise of this was a number of things. One is to give women that total break if somebody else is making your coffee and somebody else is clearing up after you and filling the dishwasher and all those wonderful things. But also bringing women together is, and we get people like they're celebrating their 40th, 50th, 60th, their mothers groups that have known each other for 20 years, all those sorts of wonderful things. And you will see them arrive with their shoulders like this, and they're all uptight, and they're really up, really stressed.
Yeah.
And then they'll come in and they'll start with some champagne or whatever, which they've all brought themselves, and they'll start chatting, and they'll talk about, they all have exactly the same problems, or they've all got, one's got a really bad problem, and they all step in and help with that. But whatever they talk about, they suddenly realise that they're kind of normal, that that's something you go through, that's an issue that so many others have, that's something somebody went through 5 years ago. Oh, okay, yeah, that happened to me with my kid, or that happened to me for health-wise, or whatever it is. And they'll have that conversation, and so even in the 48 hour that they're there, their shoulders go from here to here, and it's a wonderful thing to see, but it's also a privilege to see that happen as well.
It's really nice to create a space where women can take a moment, because it's so hard to find a moment. It's really difficult to stop. I mean, just being in a house where I don't have to do anything, I actually say I'm not one of those women that goes to somebody's house and say, can I help with anything? I don't do that. I actually say, when I start the relationship with these friends, I'm like, I don't expect you to do anything in my house. I'm not going to do anything in yours. Do you understand? Brilliant. Great. Because I'm just going to sit in your house, drink your wine, eat your food. When you come to mine, I expect the same, and I don't want you to lift a finger. Because it is important, because it's just so, life just gets so... It's before you get on to mum guilt, friend guilt, family guilt, and all of that, trying to help each other out. So, yes, I would love to come to the Blue Mountains. Thank you for inviting me.
Please do.
I'm really looking forward to my ticket going through the mail.
What would be lovely to do is Venus Getaways on super yachts. How good would that be?
Oh,
it'd be really expensive, but it'd be so good.
It would be really expensive. And then, but I would find it, I don't know whether I'd feel comfortable being waited on. And then also, I wouldn't want it to turn in.
There's a bias right there.
What?
Okay. I wouldn't feel comfortable being waited on. So sometimes when women arrive at the house, we literally have to make them sit on their hands. And we say, now listen, the butler is here to take care of you. And at the beginning, they feel uncomfortable, and they're not quite sure why they've got a butler. And they're, and the butler can be male or female. It's there's no...
Male, called Shane. I'd like that.
And by the end of the weekend, they're saying, can we take the butler home with us?
Especially if he's called Shane and he's beautifully tanned and blonde haired. I'm all over that for sure.
So it's a good thing.
But no, it would, on a super yacht, I think it would be slightly different. I probably would tap into the whole below deck vibe and then start analysing their service. So it probably wouldn't be great because my chief stew brain would be like, But anyway, right. Yeah. So to finish up, could you please, if you can, hark back to a absolutely bonkers situation that really can only happen on a boat and you're just like, what on earth is going on?
Okay, but there was one time when we were sitting in a very, it's called Refuge Bay. So because of the name of the bay, Refuge Bay is very protected and a beautiful spot to hang out in. And we were in our Princess. That's part of where the boat Princess comes from. So we're on our Princess, and my boys, who were about, I guess I would have been about 8 and 11 at the time, something like that, maybe a little bit younger. They had these little single kayaks that they would take over to the beach and then come back to us. And again, I think it's a lovely part of boating that the kids get to do things as kids, and you're not wrapping them in cotton wool. You go and you send them off to the beach on their kayaks, and you can see them. They're in the distance, and if you need to get the tender out and go and get them, you can, but they're having time to themselves independently. So they're over on the beach, and suddenly we look around and there's this big squall coming towards us, and we went, oh, my God, okay. So we're calling out to them, come back to the boat, come back to the boat, come back. And they started kayaking back, and as they got to the boat, the squall is really getting to us now. And but they made it, and they got back on the boat. And I'll never forget that moment as a mother, because you're, my children are,
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was a moment of triumph for them, and a moment of resilience for them, and a moment of working out, how can we do this quickly? How can we get to the boat quickly? And really powering through and doing their thing. So, yeah, it was a mad moment, but they were safe. And I mean, they had their jackets on and everything as well. And it is a bay at the end of the day. They're not going to go out to sea and all that sort of thing. But that was a bit of a mad moment, I guess. And it's a moment that you always remember. And another one was, I'm on the boat looking behind us. We've got the full wake of the Princess behind us. My son's on this is when he's older. It's like 14, maybe 16. He was on the jet ski behind us, and he went through the wake, but he disappeared completely on this massive jet ski. I went, oh my God. And then he appeared again, and he was all right. So it was like, but he just disappeared completely in the waves. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's always the moments with your kids that you remember the most, because I mean, if you're lucky enough to have children, which I have been lucky enough to do, they are your world, right? So
they give the world a whole brand new perspective. That's for sure. But it's, I haven't got to those moments yet. Like, God forbid, Esme's doing gymnastics because she keeps headbutting and falling over. So hopefully her balance will improve, so she'll stop falling over, let alone out into the big wide world doing things. But I'm sure she'll be fine. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. I've really enjoyed. I'd love to have you on again. We can do an update, maybe if you're at Metz next year. I will. Yeah,
we can talk about my other bits we didn't even talk about. Like, we've got.
I know you've got so many
clubs, and
we could do a boat princess series.
Yes, which is so exciting.
Yeah. No, it would be really good to.
And the boat princess accessories, and all this wonderful. I hope to go forever. An
entrepreneur's life never stops.
And the fashion shows we've done and all those fun things. We've done loads. So.
So obviously I'll have you on again. We'll perhaps catch up with you. When you're in Palma, is that going to be round the show? their
That's
yacht show.
in May, late May.
Yeah, so that might be around the Palmer Yacht Show. So it might be there. We might be able to do it in person.
I literally have to leave Sanctuary Cove Boat Show to go to it.
Well, check out the dates. But thank you very much for coming on. I've really enjoyed your company. And ladies, if you're listening, or men who are listening to this podcast, and you've enjoyed this episode, we shall put Nicky's details below. If you're lucky enough, and when the ladies that are listening in Australia, you can go to the Blue Mountains. Just don't tell me that you're going, because I don't want to know, unless you're going to post Shane in his apron back for me. Yes, if you've enjoyed this episode, there are more for you to discover. Details obviously below, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye. Bye. There you go. All done. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Really good. So